All right, now let's move into DAO classes because this is really important. And later when you learn about Spring Boot, you'll see how to connect to a real database and whatnot. But basically these classes in here, so data access object. So let me actually type it for you. So data access and then object. And let me just remove the word classes in here. So data access object, and they're basically responsible of interacting with whatever database or store for your application. What do I mean? So here, maybe when we want to store cars to a database, for example. Maybe we want to store cats to a database. Maybe we want to store the cars that go into the garage database, for example. Same with person, right? Now the database could be maybe an in-memory array, or it could be a file. So you've learned about files, or maybe a real database. So those classes, they're responsible of handling how data is stored. So let's just focus for a second in here on car in here, right? So let's just focus on car. So let's just basically name a class or create a class called car and then DAO. Now I'll show you a better name for this, and really this should be the name of the interface, but because we haven't learned about interfaces, don't worry about this for now. But here maybe we want to have a method for storing cars to a database. Now the database, let's just say that the database is an array. So here let's just say private and then static. Let me just put this full screen, and this will be an array of cars. So car, just like that. And let's say that, so here let's just have our static block, and we're going to initialize cars equals to new, there we go, new car. And maybe let's just say that the capacity is, I don't know, 100 cars. Let's just say this, right? Now you can see that this is our store, so we can store cars into it, right? But we don't have any methods yet. So this is where the DAO comes into place. So how do we store data into our store? So public void add and then car, or maybe save car. And here we're going to take car. There we go. And this class right here is just responsible of adding to the database. Now the business logic, remember, business logic should happen within the service class, right? So car service. So check if car is null, check if registration number is valid, check if reg number is not taken, so on and so forth. So all of those checks, and if all of those checks indeed pass, right, then we want to basically just store the car to our database. Now here within the DAO, so car DAO, so all we're doing here is we want to basically find the next available slot for us to add this car in here. So let's just say car dot, and I think we need the index, so cars dot for I and full screen in here, or even it would make sense for us to store the next available index, right? So let's just delete that. So here I'm going to say private and then static int next available and then slot, just like that. Now in here, so let's just start with 0, so equals to 0. There we go. So next available slot. So here, so now to add a car or to save a car in here, so we just say cars and then next available slot equals to the car, just like that. And you can see that maybe if the slot is bigger than 0 or bigger than 100, maybe we want to increment the array, in fact, right? So we want to expand the array. So maybe this method will actually take care of it. And you'll learn more about lists, which actually do that for us. But for now, let's just focus on arrays because if you learn how arrays work, then the lists will be a piece of cake, right? But in here, you could say if, and then next available car slot, and we want to say +1 is greater or equal. So +1 because I think this will be 0 to 99, right? So if it's greater or equal to 100, and we can even store the capacity. So let's just extract this. So I'm going to say, where is it? Refactor, and then introduce constant. And here I'm going to say capacity. Capacity. There we go. And let's also make this private. There we go. So if next available car slot +1 is greater or equal than capacity, then maybe we want to grow. So grow dB, for example, right? But I'm not going to implement this in here because later you'll see how lists do take care of that. But if that's not the case, then we just add the car to the next available slot, as we've done in here. And finally, what we need to do is to increment the next available slot in here. So you could do like this, ++, and you've learned about ++, or you could basically do this in 2 lines if you prefer. So next available car slot, and then ++ in here, or you can increment it right away, just like that, because at this point the index is 0. So if this is 0, then we add it to 0. This will be 1. The next time around, this will be 1, and then this will be 2 for the next available car slot. So to be honest, this is it. And bear in mind that obviously if you do this, so this is incorrect. Yeah, because here, if you remember, so this is increment and return, and we probably don't want this, right? So basically at this point, so the first slot is 0. If I do this, so ++ next available slot, we are skipping 0 and going to 1 straight away. But no, I want to start from 0. So we add 0, and then we can move on and either do ++, just like that, or if you prefer, you could do ++ in here or on this side. Okie dokie, let me just leave it as this in here, and you can see how this class now is responsible for adding cars, so our model, into the store or into the data store. And the data store is just an array. It could be a list, it could be a file, it could be a real database, so on and so forth. But you can see how this works. So to be honest, this is it. Now obviously we have car DAO, you'd have garage DAO, person DAO, so on and so forth. If you have any questions, please do let me know. Otherwise, next, let me teach you how to connect car DAO as well as service. So car service together.